Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Aretha. In today's video, I'd like to chat about the idea that we can reclaim discipline as something we actually enjoy. We often associate the idea of discipline with obedience, punishment, and doing things we don't want to do. Usually, discipline is imposed on us by other people, by our parents, by our teachers, by our bosses. So even when we set our own rules for discipline, we tend to rebel against it because we associate it with restrictions and with punishment. But I would like to challenge that version of discipline at least a little bit. If you Google the definition of discipline, you will probably find something like this. The very first definition of discipline is all about obedience and punishment, but I prefer the version at the very bottom. Discipline is a system of rules of conduct. And I know that the word rules also has a negative connotation. But to me, rules are the difference between living your life on default and on autopilot and choosing how you want to live your life. So, rules are about the intentionality of what we want for ourselves and making sure that it is part of our life. I want you to consider that there are many ways that discipline can actually help protect our peace and serve us in a pleasant way. For example, in one of my other videos, I talked about pre-decisions, and one of the examples I used was creating a script in advance that you can use to decline invitations and requests that you don't want. Well, using that script is a form of discipline. Remember that discipline is a system of rules of conduct, and you have pre-decided how you want to behave in this situation. When someone asks you to do something you really don't want to do, in the moment, your immediate response would be one of two things. Either you say yes because you feel very uncomfortable saying no and you want them to like you, or you know that you don't want to say yes, but you also don't know how to say no, so you end up with a very vague answer and you basically delay making the decision. So you end up saying something like, well, maybe I could, or let me get back to you on that. The disciplined way would be to recognize that you don't want to do that and use your script to politely decline the offer. And this requires discipline because it goes against your default behavior pattern and it puts you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. The great news is that by saying no, you are releasing yourself and the person from this decision. They don't have to wait for you to make up your mind, and they don't have to turn around and figure out a backup plan when you eventually decline, come up with some excuse, and don't show up. Similarly, you are released because you don't have to spend any more time agonizing and thinking about ways that you can get out of the situation. So, what this shows is that the benefits of your disciplined action could be immediate. I think we have a tendency to think about discipline as something that only has benefits in the future. So you grind today so that at some point in the future you get amazing results. But that's not always true. Sometimes the discipline is about the action you take and the benefits can be immediate. Another great example of discipline that we've all seen and that I get very envious of is the people who always seem very well put together. So it could be a person who always gets their hair done really well, their nails are always on point, and everything else is always taken care of. So they're always ready to look their best. These kinds of people have a meticulous routine that requires discipline and allows them to stay ready so they don't have to get ready. And while the things they do to look good are probably pleasant for the most part, it still requires discipline because when you're sitting on your couch, vegging out, eating Cheetos, getting up to go to an appointment that you can easily cancel just to make sure that you stay on top of your routine requires a certain level of discipline. I've never gone on a walk that I didn't come back from and felt amazing afterwards. But every once in a while, I get stuck and I don't want to go walk, knowing full well that I will feel amazing after. So, what I want you to get out of this is that discipline is not always around the things you don't like to do. It's also about the things that you like to do, enjoy doing, feel great immediately after, but have to sometimes push yourself to make sure you get them done. Another way discipline can serve us is by making sure we treat ourselves with the same respect that we have for others. It's easy for us to follow through on commitments we make to others because there's an accountability outside of ourselves. But very often, it is easy for us to dismiss the things we want because there's no external accountability around them. Discipline is a way to overcome that. If you know that there are certain activities that, if done weekly or daily, allow you to show up as the best version of yourself, then you have to have the discipline of making them part of your daily and weekly routine. So, for example, if you really like reading but haven't been able to find time to read, then it will require a little bit of discipline to look through how you spend your time and carve out a portion of it for reading. Maybe you spend less time scrolling on your phone. Maybe you shut off your emails after 5 p.m. Maybe you do something else to disconnect. Maybe your lunch break becomes a lot more strategic in how you spend your time. But the thing is, if you don't put the things that matter to you on the calendar and you keep thinking that, well, I'll have time for it later, it will never happen. So it will require discipline for you to actually make sure the things you enjoy, the things you want to do, are part of your calendar. They're on your schedule and they happen. So discipline can be about honoring what really matters to you and making sure it is as important to you as the commitments you made to other people. Sometimes discipline is about doing the things we know we should do, even though in the moment our inclination is to try to avoid those things because they make us feel slightly uncomfortable. But sometimes discipline is a valid way of restraining yourself from doing too much. If you suffer from any form of perfectionism, then you will understand what I'm about to say. Discipline for me is as much about pushing myself to do the things I should do as it is for me to stop when I've done enough. It's really hard for me to restrain myself when I'm on a roll. When I'm having a good day, I try to pack as much as possible into it so I can get as much done as possible. But then that becomes the new standard I try to live by. Now every day has to measure up to that one super productive day. And this recipe inevitably leads to burnout. So part of my discipline is deciding when I am done for the day and respecting it. I think I've heard this from Michelle B on one of her videos, but she says, do as much today as you can recover from tomorrow. That may not be an exact quote. I watch a lot of her content, so the ideas stay with me, but I may not remember the exact phrasing. But the thought is to acknowledge your limitations. Don't overdo it today so that it takes you a week to recover. That ability to know when you've done enough and actually stop yourself from doing too much is a really hard one to implement for those of us who suffer from perfectionism. You either do too much or not enough. I think this is a beautiful way to learn to use discipline as a way to protect your energy and protect your peace. So set a minimum for what you want to do and set a maximum. For example, for me, I either go to the gym every day because I'm super into it, or I have to drag myself out of bed just to go 3 times a week. So what I've decided is that my minimum is 3 times a week and my maximum will be not to exceed 5 times a week. When I get on a roll, I have a tendency to think that doing more has to be better. And it's not always true because your body needs time to recuperate. So if you struggle with taking breaks or knowing when to stop and you have a tendency to overdo things and then burn out, try to use discipline as a way to set boundaries for yourself around how much is too much and how much is just enough. So I've said the word discipline about 1,000 times in this video, but it's not about being rigid and punishing yourself. Discipline is a tool in our toolbox. It can be about making sure that there's room in our lives for the things we truly want. So now it's your turn. What are the things you want for yourself, but you have not disciplined yourself enough to make part of your life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.